Swimming like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. Hey, everyone, I'm Dan Whedon. We are streaming live on the Shrimp Tank. For whatever reason, we're streaming on my personal Facebook page. I couldn't get on the Shrimp Tank. We'll get that all fixed later. But what the heck, we're going live. You are listening live to the Seattle Shrimp Tank on a very special event. So you know, starting next week, we're going to be streaming live at 12 p.m. every Wednesday. I'm Dan Whedon. I'm your solo co-host for today because we have a special announcement, and I'm going to let my co-host of almost the last 5 years, Brad Berger, share that with you. But you need to know this. We are streaming wherever you get your podcasts. We're talking about iHeartRadio, talking about Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. We're ubiquitous. Find us where you get them. Right now, I want to introduce our guest for today. It's our very own Brad Berger, Cornerstone Financial Strategies, Ideal Life 360, and Shrimp Tank podcast co-host. But Brad, let's talk a little bit about what you're going to be doing. I've got your bio, but the reality is I want to talk with you. I want you to talk to the people. Brad Berger, how are you? And what's going on? What's new?
Hey, Dan, appreciate it. We have been doing this together for almost 5 years now. It's been a phenomenal ride and a wonderful journey through this process. But through all of this, obviously, the growth of Cornerstone Financial Strategies as well as Ideal Life 360 requires that I spend a little more time and a little more attention focused on the continued growth of those two phenomenal organizations. So that's where I'm going to be shifting some of my time. And I think with the transition that you're going to make of doing the show not only virtually but also weekly, I'm excited for you with what you've got lined up with the Seattle Shrimp Tank going forward.
Well, first of all, Brad, well, thank you. First of all, we're going to find out a little story about how the Shrimp Tank was born.
Yeah.
We are going weekly. We are going at noon. I've got 4 new co-hosts, Brad. It took 4 people to replace you. It took 4 people to replace you. I got 4 new co-hosts. We are going to have our first show introducing all of them a week from today at 12 o'clock. But I want my focus today to be on you. Now I've got a long bio here, but the reality is that I want to focus on your opportunity to on this last show. We're going to talk about Cornerstone Financial. We're going to talk about financial services in general, Ideal Life 360. But as we get rolling into this, Brad, I don't think we've ever shared with our community how we got started. And it's because of you. You were the proximate cause. Tell us a story about that.
Sure. So one of the things that I've recognized is the fact that whenever we've been building Cornerstone, as an example, I'm never really that concerned about where our next client's going to come from or how our next year is going to be. But what I really wanted to focus my attention on, and that's one of my roles in the firm, is to where's our client going to come from 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. And back when we started doing this, I know that 5 years probably seems like, not that long ago, but in the realm of financial planning as it relates to social media, it's an eternity. Because back in the mid 2000s, they're just mid 2010, so like 2015, 2016. The regulations around social media were really stringent. And the Securities and Exchange Commission and as well as FINRA just didn't like social media. They couldn't control it. They didn't really want people participating in it. And I was invited to a conference.
Hey, Brad, I have to interrupt you. Brad, this is your life. And speaking You know what? Because I don't know whenever Lee Heisman's going to drop in, and I hate interrupting
Hello,
the
Lee.
speech, but Brad, this is your life. We want to bring in one of the founders of the Shrimp Tank
Yeah.
to say hello. Lee Heisman, welcome to the tank, baby.
Well, Dan, thank you so much. I'm sorry I'm mobile and I don't have a pretty background behind me. Oh, Brad, we're going to miss you.
Hi, no problem. So I'll tell you a story about Lee, but that's all right.
So Lee,
Dan, do I get a question?
Go ahead,
I'm
Lee.
sorry.
Go ahead, Lee.
Do I get an opportunity to ask a few? Have you gotten to a plead the fifth section? Are you
No,
running a
but
segment?
we're gonna make this work. But what I did want to say was Brad was telling the story about how he met Ted and
Yep.
how we became the third Shrimp Tank City. I also want to hear from your perspective. What did you think when you met Brad and thought this guy's going to be podcasting for us?
All right, so I will tell you, Brad, listen, and this is your life, right, Brad? So you guys were the third Shrimp Tank City, which we were so proud to have you guys aboard. And I've used you guys as an example for years to all of our cities when they ask, hey, how many times a week or how many times a month should I be doing this? And you know where I'm going with this, right, Brad? And, Brad, Dan, and you guys both actually, you ran at your own pace. You ran at your own cadence, which was really quite impressive. And you said, we're going to do this every 2 weeks. Most cities are doing weekly. And you said, I have a very select group of people that I want to bring on the show. And you said, I'm going to run it every 2 weeks. And I said, guys, I'm telling you, it's going to take a little bit longer for you to get your cadence down and to get all your chops, I guess you could say. And it's funny because after about a month or two, you guys picked it up so quick, Brad. There was no question you guys not only were our third city, but probably our top 2 to 3 hosts across the entire country. In addition, Dan, one time, I have to tell a story. Dan did not join the show with you. And Dan, I don't know if you remember this, but I've always promoted, and I'm telling you, people forget this. There is an unbelievable dynamic when you have a co-host. So you're interviewing your guests, but if it was one-on-one, it would be a very different dynamic than having 2 of you as a host and a co-host.
Right.
And Brad called me, Dan, one time you couldn't arrive. And Brad said, you know what, Lee? He almost whispered into the phone. He kind of leaned into the phone. He said, I just did a show without Dan. I know you told me not to do it alone. It's got a weird dynamic to it. I'm never doing that again. I will never, ever do a show alone. The dynamic is weird because the host can play back and forth off each other if you get a very quiet guest.
Yeah, and
there's a lot of value.
That's what we had. Yeah, it was interesting because that particular guest, and we won't name him by name, but I think he was just.
You remember
Oh
it,
God,
Brad.
yes, I remember it because I never did it again. The issue was he was so dynamic in person, and when he got behind a mic, it was just like
it was the Cindy Brady. It was the Cindy Brady effect, perhaps. You remember that?
And
Wow.
I tell you, I consider myself to be a pretty decent interviewer and somebody who's very comfortable asking questions, but you gotta have the back and forth, or else it just doesn't work.
100%. And you know what does work, and that's what we've done here in the podcast for so long. And Dan and Brad, the cool part is we've been doing this for years where everybody's trying to get into it now. And you can tell they wanted to most people want to make these very basic conversations, but I think what's been successful for you guys and for us is the structure and the format that you've maintained. And I will tell you, a lot of people look beyond that and think it's just an easy, free-flowing conversation. But when you have 2 hosts that work so well, like both of you guys together, because you guys, you offset each other beautifully. What you're lacking, Dan, which is hell of a lot, of course, Brad has, and vice versa. So, there's, and also, Dan, you're lacking the plane, because I have a litany of questions from Ted about a plane for you, Brad. So I did not even know that you flew.
This is segue at its best. I'm going to take a segue to do our quick commercial, and then we're going to come back. So listen, we're going to take a short break to hear from our sponsor. When we come back with our guest, Brad Berger with Cornerstone Financial Strategies and Idea Life 360, we're going to let Lee Heisman do the first hot or not of this. So I don't even know what to tease out. I have no idea. We're going to find out together. So don't walk away. We'll be right back with more of the Seattle Shrimp Tank.
The Seattle Shrimp Tank is brought to you by IdealLife360.com. What would it be like to be in the best shape of your life, both physically and mentally, every day for the rest of your life? Have awesome relationships with the people you care about most. never having to worry about money again. What would it be like if you received a letter out of the blue and suddenly discovered you had 20 more years to live than you ever imagined? What would you do with those extra years of your life? How many lives would you touch? What kind of legacy would you leave behind? What changes would you make today knowing you had 20 more years in your future? What new big changes would you take on? What would be next? Visit www.ideallife360.com or call 1-844-543-3360 to discover how to rethink, redefine, and reinvent the best years of your life.
Welcome back with our very special Brad Berger finale. Thank you very much to the Port Ludlow Resort as our shrimp peeler sponsor. Here's what we're going to do. And by the way, Sue and Tiara, we're going to talk about Sue and Tiara in a little bit because they've been such an integral part of the Shrimp Tank podcast. But Lee Heisman, straight from Atlanta, the mothership. Does that bother you if we call you the mothership?
I've been called much worse, Dan. I'll take it.
Okay. I want you, I know you've got some hot or not, you can mix and plead the fifth. I really don't care what you do. Start asking some questions.
Sure. Well, so I have some inside information on you, Brad, and I'd like to know, is it hot or not to build a home in the middle of nowhere, or do you want to be in the heart of the city?
Hot is being out away from the city. Absolutely. So yes, we've built a home over in Eastern Washington.
Brad,
Absolutely.
Lee, it's a mansion. They built a mansion in the middle of Nowheresville, Washington. And I don't know what the zip there is, but that's where they're at.
Yeah.
Well, it's a mansion probably because it's what, $50 an acre over there?
Well, it may be $50 an acre, but it's still a hell of a lot of money to build a house there.
It's very true. And I'm glad that how long ago did you finish that?
We were actually in as of November. Yeah, so it's a pandemic build.
Well, I was going to tell you, congratulations, because the supply chain is officially shut down.
Yeah.
Since there's over hundreds or tens of thousands of containers sitting in the port of Long Beach, California.
Yeah.
So the construction world is done. Anybody listening, if you're doing any building, just expect to add another 30 to 50%, not only on your cost, but also the length of time. So I have a plead the fifth here, but I'm hoping you don't do it. What is the worst plead the fifth question you've ever asked a guest, or the worst plead the fifth answer you've ever received?
Ooh. What is the worst plead the fifth question? I think some of them have to do with when we've had guests on. I probably can't give you a specific answer, but when we've had guests on, especially if they work with one another, and we'll ask some sort of personal question about, either what it's like to work together or taking work home. And I think that we've gotten some pretty interesting eyebrow raising answers to some of those questions, like, wow, I didn't think that that's where it was going.
Well, that's a perfect segue, Brad, because that actually is my next question. Is you and Dan have been partners in the tank for what seems to be so long. I'm going to ask each of you, if I may, what is the one thing you would change about your co-host and partner in the tank?
Oh, I got one right now for Brad.
By the way, you both were jumping in at the same time. You both had something going on in your mind.
I'll let Brad hit second on this. One thing I changed, he'd show up on time. He'd show up for the early part, maybe even at the same time I did. Today's a perfect example.
Brilliant. Brad?
Hey, as I've always said, I'm just the talent.
It's true. Very true. So what is the one thing you change about Dan?
I'm not going to plead the fifth on there, but I honestly have to tell you that there's not a lot. There's probably nothing that I really would change about him. I knew instantly when I was given this opportunity to do the show, there was nobody else that came to mind except Dan. And I think it was just naturally there because, obviously he's got a lot of charisma. He's going to talk about Sue and Tiara, and they are huge, huge contributors to the show. But I will tell you, Dan has done more, and that literally more than his fair share. And does a lot behind the scenes. And so I've taken advantage of that.
I think we all have, and I will tell
I'll just
you,
apologize to you now, Dan.
Brad, that's been my
Brilliant.
pleasure.
Well, we've always claimed that Boca was our aspiring, our little crown jewel of the tank. But I will tell you, Dan is now taking the lead, bringing multiple other co-hosts on. And Dan, I think you're in direct competition with our Boca studio for becoming the crown jewel of our little, crown that we call the shrimp tank. Brad, I have one more because Dan, I got to roll, and you know me, I jump on real quick and jump out.
It's the Emerald. So see, it's Emerald City. So that's going to be the
I
Emerald
like that.
and the crown, right?
So Brad, real quick one for our listeners as well, and anybody watching, is it? And this is a Ted Jenkin question. Ted had texted me; he was sorry he was unable to come on. Number one, how many water landings have you had with your plane?
Oh, hundreds.
Hundreds. Okay, fair.
Hundreds. Yeah, I'm an avid seaplane pilot.
And is it safer to land on the ground or on water?
Water.
It's safer to land on water. Is it safer to jump out of a plane or to fly in a plane?
I've done both, but I would prefer to fly.
I like that. Guys, listen, Brad, it is great to see your face. You actually weirdly look a lot younger today than you normally do. So I don't know what you're doing.
He's got makeup on, probably.
Well, it's either that, Dan, or life is relative, and both yours and my faces are on the screen with him, so it's all relative, and he looks younger. Brad, we will miss you. Dan, I'm overjoyed with what we're doing with the new hosts. I'm glad you let me jump in for just a few moments. My apologies again, Dan. I'm always in the car moving around and shaking. Don't forget, we're in Georgia, so life is normal here, so I'm always in and out of appointments. And guys, Brad, you better stay in touch, and we're going to keep the love rolling with the shrimp tank and representing Seattle and that western region up there very well, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Lee.
You got it, guys.
Bye-bye.
Hey, Brad, I know we cut you off in the mid-story, but I didn't know when Lee would come on, and we wanted to have him here on your last day.
Well, thank you very much. That was very, very, very special. So let's talk about the other team.
I've got a plan. Believe it or not, I've got a plan. We're going to talk about the rest of the team after we come back from break. And in fact, Sue, I don't want you to read my commercial. You guys are going to be the commercial. So no commercial. When it comes to commercial time, I'm going to introduce Sue and Tiara. Okay. Brad, what I do want to talk about real briefly, though, is your business, because the business demands are what are taking you away. I want to hear a little bit about where you see what you do in the financial sector, where financial planning and wealth planning, where that's going to, and what's leading you to be so busy in it right now.
So I do want to take 30 seconds to finish my story about
Ted.
Yeah,
right? Of course. I forgot about that. Yeah. So to finish that and then answer.
Yeah. So anyway, I went to a conference. I was invited to a conference, small gathering, maybe about 50 people. And they were having this speaker that had kind of cracked the code on social media. So I went, and guess who the speaker was? It was Ted Jenkins. I heard about this concept that he and Lee were launching called the Shrimp Tank, a podcast. And one of the things that I was intrigued by was what they were doing. And I cozied up to Ted at dinner, purposefully, made sure that I strategically sat at his table. We got along really, really well. And I basically leaned across the table and I said, I am going to be your third city. I said, I want in and I want to do this. And that's kind of how this came about, because it gets back to this concept about, I always want to be, it's the famous Wayne Gretzky quote. The way that I address business and I approach life is I want to be skating to where the puck is going, not to where the puck is. And that's what the Shrimp Tank really represented for Cornerstone and for Ideal Life 360, which was we wanted to create a digital footprint and participate in social media in a way that was going to be workable within the regulation. So let's talk a little bit about what makes Cornerstone unique and where I really think that the industry is going. And I was a guest on another podcast just earlier today on this particular subject. First and foremost, we're a comprehensive financial planning firm. that definition is open to wide interpretation, but it basically means we cover everything. We talk about something called the 6 big risks, and how we integrate all of those into an overall comprehensive financial plan. But what we've discovered along the way, as we created this methodology and framework and process, and in particular how it ties into our value proposition. And that value proposition, basically by going through that methodology, framework, and process, takes you from the alignment of your most important goals with your most deeply held values to a point where we have a process in place to help you get and keep your entire financial house in order, which then creates confidence that no matter what happens in the markets or the economy of the world, that you're going to be okay, which then promotes an environment where you can free up physical and mental space and time to focus on things that are more important than money. And by doing that, what we realized is that we were being successful. We were being successful at bringing people through that value proposition. They were getting to a point where they had this ability to say, I'm now freed. I have free time. My mind is free. I'm experiencing this last element of your value proposition. And they leaned across the table and say, now what? And so that really was the kind of the birth of Ideal Life 360, because again, the financial services industry hasn't quite embraced fully life coaching and behavioral finance around the concept of financial planning. So we've integrated that, and everything that we do is a backdrop of what we call on-demand and ongoing life coaching, so that we can help our clients navigate life beyond the financial plan so that they can make the greatest impact that they possibly can and satisfy what we call living their ideal life.
Well, and part of what, and I've done many events with you on that, where you've led that, you've hosted it, you've guided us through it. And really, because it does go beyond just the money part of it, there's also you know what, we want you to not only live ideally, but we want you to live longer ideally.
Yes.
we want you to live into a centenarian, or they say that centenarian. Get to that 100, you know. And Brad, we've had, just to harken back, we've had a number, and very recently, guests who have talked about wellness, who have talked about different strategies about living longer. And what you're doing with both Ideal Life 360 and with Cornerstone is you're saying, look, if you're gonna live longer, if we can help you do that, would you like to be happier, and would you like to be able to have money to do it? So that's really what you folks are all doing. Am I right?
That's right. And again, so it's about breaking down what we refer to, and I probably not have time to go in this completely, but breaking down what we call the culturally conforming conveyor belt,
right? And
having people live outside of the primetime myth, and really, again, understanding and recognizing what that looks like, because I think some people's fear about living long, it's the second big risk. Which is, we call it living too long. And it can essentially, when we say, actually, most people aren't worried about living too long as, right?
Right.
But what they're really worried about is running out of money before they run out of life. And so they tend to truncate their life expectancy to kind of match up with how much money they think that they're going to have or how long it will last. And we just want to work the other way. We want to look at, how long can you live? How long will you live? How healthy could you be? What is the mindset around that? What are the sorts of physical activities you need to be involved in, mental activities you need to be involved in, and let's then plan around how we make that happen.
So here's what we're going to make happen right now, Brad. We're going to take the commercial break, but we're not going to commercial. And because you didn't know Lee was coming on, we kind of planned, and we didn't get a chance. We're probably not going to talk as much about this as I'd like. So I want you to commit to me now. I know you're going to be very busy, but I want you back as a guest on our show.
Absolutely.
So we'll have you come back as a guest. I'm going to see if I can make this work. I'm going to go to this gallery view, so I hope everybody can see. Sue and Tiara, why don't you both pop on? I think everybody will be able to see the geniuses behind the show, literally behind the shrimp tank curtain I've got here. Sue Pickles, wave, say hello, Sue.
Hello, everyone.
Tiara Spraggan, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everyone.
Listen, Brad, I'm going to speak for me because you get to see these wonderful people as part of the Cornerstone family all the time. Sue and Tiara, I want to express to both of you my sincere thanks. Your work behind the scenes as producers, nobody notices really except for Brad and me. And, Sue, the work you do with the guests beforehand, during, and after, you're keeping us on pace, on time. Nobody else knows that. Tiara, you're the silent one. We don't hear, but we know that you're doing much of that same work. And so I want to, on behalf of me and Brad, but really on behalf of me, thank both of you. We're going to keep in touch. Sue, I got a quick Sue story, Brad.
Go for it.
A long time, Sue would call me to talk about something she already knows, to talk to me about something related to Shrimp Tank. So she would call me. By the way, she's the only Sue Pickles I know. She's it. And she's on my phone. So when it calls, it says Sue Pickles. And she says, hi, Dan, this is Sue Pickles with the Shrimp Tank podcast. I finally said, Sue, I know you just can say, hi, it's Sue. In fact, I know it's you because I have you on my phone. You can just say hello. So finally, I think it was just a few months ago, I finally got her just to say, hi, it's Sue. And so she didn't have to differentiate herself. My only Tiara story is, I got to tell you, one, I don't remember what point it was. I walked into when we were broadcasting from the studio, and Tiara very kindly said, could I get you some coffee? And I said, yes, I'd love some, but I like lattes and mochas and fun. She goes, oh, let me see what I can do for you. And she came out with the most exquisite cup of coffee I'd ever had. So from then on, it became kind of this thing that, yeah, I'll have the usual. Pretty soon, she didn't even ask. It would just have this kind of behind the scenes look like, yep, Dan wants his coffee. And I'm going to swing by many times. Just so I can say hello to Sue and say, Sue, it's Dan Whedon from the Shrimp Tank podcast. And Tiara, I'll have that cup of coffee. So listen, Sue and Tiara, let's start with Sue. Any quick words to the audience about your experience on the show?
Well, thank you, Dan, and thank you too, Brad. And it's been my honor and pleasure to be behind the scenes and see both of you, Dan and Brad, how you just are able to every other week interview guests and just bring out so much information on them and get information for them to share, and that what they share will benefit so many people. And it's intriguing. So it's been my pleasure to sit and watch how you banter and get that information out of a guest. And what they share is just, again, really insightful. And it's, again, my pleasure and honor to be a part of the Seattle Shrimp Tank. And Dan, I wish you continued success with it, and I'll definitely be listening in.
Great, thank you. Tiara, any words of wisdom?
Yes, Sue, you said it. It's just been a pleasure to be a part of the Seattle Shrimp Tank and, watch the podcast grow and be dynamic and, witness just the amazing, lineup of guests that we've had over the past years. And Dan, I just wish you success and, thank you for carrying on this Seattle Shrimp Tank legacy, and I will be tuning in.
Super. I want you both to stay on because we're going to go to plead the fifth. And I have to tell you this, Brad. They took a couple of my plead the fifths. I'd given some in advance. I didn't know he was going to use them all. So, no, I got a couple left over, but I want Sue and Tiara to listen in. And in fact, if they have anything, I'd love to hear from them. So Brad, one of your daughters works at Nike, right?
Yes.
One of your daughters works at Nike.
Yes.
And I know that you wear the gear sometimes. I want to know, plead the fifth, Brad, if I asked your daughter what she hates most about how you dress, what would she say?
Oh, that's easy. Because I'm wearing them right now. She hates the fact that I love my Lululemon pants.
Oh, okay.
See, I'm really prohibited from wearing any competitor's apparel. But there's a story behind these pants, which we won't go. You can save that for.
We'll save that for your
another
next time.
Next show.
Okay.
But that's easy. That's easy.
So speaking of your daughters, one of them, it might be the same one, got married about a year ago or so.
2 years ago.
2 years, hard to believe, 2 years ago.
That's actually coming up on 3 now. That's
Well,
how
listen,
fast time flies.
time flies. Listen, I you know, the first thing I knew about was we were friends on Facebook, and somehow or other, a video of you at this wedding popped up, and it was you dancing a choreographed thing with your daughter, which blew my mind. Just blew my mind. So tell me, Brad, what was the hardest thing? They plead the fifth. What was the hardest thing you had to do to learn how to dance?
Well, boy, that's making the assumption you think I know how to dance.
Or preparing for the dance. What was the hardest thing in preparation?
Well, I can tell you, being out on my property, right, practicing, and having the people in the boats go by, or my neighbors saying, "What the hell are you doing?" Because I was the only one doing it. So here I am dancing around. You know, Beth was coaching me, and I had a video because my daughter and I didn't have a lot of opportunity. You know, we were only going to have a few days before the wedding to actually do it together, right? So we did it virtually. And to a large degree, what she did is she videotaped it with one of her friends, right, doing it, and said, "You're going to be this person. So this is your role." And I had that video, and I just would watch that video and practice along as I went.
Okay, I've got one more here. Do you? I don't know, Sue and Tiara. Are you probably? I don't know if you have one or not, or do you want to let me go?
I do have one.
Oh, go, because I'm going to save mine for last. Go ahead, Tiara.
Now I know you, Dan, and Brad, you like to ask the guests this plead the fifth, so I think it's Brad's turn. Brad, who is your celebrity crush?
I knew this was coming. The younger Jamie Lee Curtis.
So you don't like the gray hair? Is that what you're saying?
I liked her back, you know, when she was she used to do the T-Mobile commercials for a while, right?
Yeah.
Back in that genre. That Jamie Lee Curtis.
Are you asking me too, Tiara?
Well, since you volunteered, sure.
Do you know the name Taya Leone? She played Madam Secretary.
No.
I'm a Taya Leone fan,
Okay.
so she would be that. So Sue, do you have a plead the fifth for Brad?
I think I'm going to spare Brad.
Okay, so I got one more plead the fifth, and then we're gonna have Brad. You're gonna end it for us here. By the way, I'm gonna come up with a new ending because I'm never gonna. Yours will forever be what you're gonna end with today. But Brad, you have to drive from Seattle to Boston, Boston to Dallas, Dallas home. So you're making this big triangle, and you got to drive, and you get one of the backup co-hosts. You either get Andy Vernon, JB Wilson, or Mike Pickles, who did it once. You only get one of them. Whom would you choose to take that trip with?
JB Wilson.
JB Wilson Jr. the third.
No, the seventh.
I think the seventh. JB Wilson Jr. the seventh. Okay. I will leave it at that. So Brad, listen.
Nothing against the other two, but that's
no. I like, yeah, JB would be fun. So listen, first of all, I'm gonna leave me here. I'm gonna stop talking after this. You're gonna take us out. Brad, it's been my pleasure and honor. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing this Shrimp Tank podcast. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for your support. I have appreciated it, and I know we will continue to see each other, and I can't wait to have you on the show as a guest. So thank you, my friend.
So our next show from the virtual studio will be next Wednesday, right? That's April 28th. at noon. But make sure you check out all of the replays on shrimptankpodcast.com/Seattle, and now on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. And remember, to become a shark, we all start out as shrimps.
I've been feeling like a shark in a shrimp tank. Big fish, small pond in the shrimp tank. But it's